What's going on, guys? It's Jacob from Topside MMA, and today I'm bringing you my weigh-in recap video for UFC Vegas 108 Taira versus Park. So let's get right into it. First up, we have Piera Rodriguez versus Ketlen Souza. Now, both of these girls made weight. Ketlen Souza did have a little bit more difficulty making weight, slimming down that last bit. But these girls both ended up making it, so in the face-offs you can see they both look pretty good. I can't say one is really leaning one way or the other in terms of who looks better. They both look about the same. Nothing really changes with the weigh-in results, even though Ketlen Souza did have a bit of a more difficult time making that weight, so that is something to consider, I guess, if you're on the fence. Maybe Ketlen had a hard weight cut and it was dragging her down a little bit, but I think when we saw these girls face off, they look pretty good to go. I don't see anything really is standing out to me in terms of visually, they both look pretty good, ready to go. So next up, we got Rafael Estevam versus Felipe Bunes. Now, Rafael Estevam really came in heavy. He missed weight. It wasn't even close. We could see when he came to do the weigh-ins, he was looking down the whole time. He was looking sad and looking down. I don't know why he was. He knew ahead of time. He knew damn well he wasn't making weight. And the fact that he made Felipe Bunes cut all the way down to 125, it's kind of shitty. And, Felipe, he made the weight. He cut all the way down. He had the glasses on, so his face probably looked a little bit drained. I imagine it was a tough cut for him. And Rafael Estevam, even though he botched the weight cut entirely, he still looked pretty drained, and he did not look great. Maybe it's an act. I don't know why he was looking so down. And even when they did the face-offs, too, Rafael Estevam looks a little out of it. He looked really kind of like, ooh, he did not look good. So, and Felipe Bunes, on the other hand, he does look drained too, but he looked ready to go. So this is weird too, especially if you had like a blind eye to this and you just looked at these guys and someone asked you who looks 4 pounds heavier or 5 pounds heavier than the other, you'd probably say Felipe Bunes. He looks bigger in this. So I don't know where that extra weight is coming from, but Lord knows where Rafael Estevam is going to actually weigh in for this fight. So this has to make people more confident. He didn't look like he was dying out there. He just looked a little drained. So after he rehydrates and he's starting at 130, he's going to be huge for this fight. And I feel really bad for Felipe Bunes, but this is probably not going to be good for him considering Estevam's wrestling game plan. But anyway, next up, we got Austin Bashi versus Yannis. Now, these guys are going to be ready to go to war. Austin Bashi looks absolutely insane, shredded, ready to go, very confident. He looked damn good out there. Yannis looked decent. He definitely had a little bit of a timid factor. You can tell he was trying to build it up a little bit, build up the hype, the showmanship, and when these guys faced off, they meant business. But I'll tell you what, Austin Bashi won this face-off. These guys both went, they went face to face. They were in each other's face, and it was pretty intense. But towards the end, Austin Bashi was standing his ground, and Yannis kind of like backed off and looked a little timid. And Austin Bashi won this face-off clear as day. And I think the mental game is so big, and I know Yannis is already going into this knowing he's a short notice UFC step up for his debut against a guy like Austin Bashi. He's already mentally got to be going through it, I imagine. And this made me a whole lot more confident in Austin Bashi. He is so ready to go. Looked absolutely incredible on the scales. Didn't look bad, like he had a bad weight cut at all. He looked like he had a great weight cut, ready to go. Won the face-off before. He looks dialed in. So, feeling good about him this week. Next up, we got Nick Klein versus Andrey Pulyaev. Now, these guys, it was a little bit of a weird weigh-in and face-off. Nick Klein looked absolutely incredible. You can see he's so cut, shredded. He really cut it all down for this fight. Andrey Pulyaev, he looked a little drained, a little slow, a little tired. Maybe that's just his vibe, but I don't know. He seemed a little out of it from the weight cut. And when these guys had a face-off, the thing that kind of made me a little nervous for Nick Klein is that he kind of had this like timid vibe to him. Whereas Pulyaev was very calm, cool, and collected by the time they did these face-offs, where Nick Klein wasn't really looking up at him. He was kind of looking down, which I don't really like. I'm not a huge fan of. And the size difference really kind of gets dwarfed here with their face-by-face. Because you can see, like, when they were weighing in one at a time, from these pictures, Nick Klein looks a lot bigger. It looks like he could have a big size advantage against a guy like Pulyaev. Like he seems like he might be more built, but when you really see these guys side by side, it doesn't feel that way as much as it did before. So either way, I can't say these weigh-ins really influence my opinion or move it either way. I think it's about the same after this one. So next up, we got Rodolfo Vieira versus Tresean Gore. Now, Tresean Gore completely botched this weight cut, completely missed it. This is a large concern for Rodolfo Vieira. As you can see in this cut too, Rodolfo Vieira did not have the easiest weight cut. You can see it in his eyes. He looked drained. He looked tired. He's used to this. He looks great on the scales. Super cut, super jacked. But at the same time, Tresean Gore wasn't really even trying to cut weight like he did. This makes me concerned. Especially the fact too, when these guys had their face-off, it was all smiles and all laughs, which makes me very concerned for Rodolfo Vieira because I'm not sure what he's thinking. If my opponent missed weight by that much, I wouldn't be all buddy and smiling with them. I'd be pissed off. I would not be smiling and laughing, So I don't know if it's Rodolfo Vieira being so confident where he's like, what, screw it. It doesn't matter. I'm still taking you down. I'm still going to submit you. He's just that confident. Or if he's just not really thinking about it that much. I don't know. It kind of rubs me the wrong way. I don't like it, especially because we know his way to win is through the grappling, and now he's at a big disadvantage with the weight. This worries me a lot for this fight. It makes me a hell of a lot less confident. So next up, we got Rinya Nakamura versus Nathan Fletcher. Both of these guys made weight. The thing I will say about this fight that was pretty interesting is before this fight, or before I saw them on the scales and before I saw their face-off, in my mind, I thought Rinya would look a lot bigger and look taller and seemed like he had a real size advantage over Nathan Fletcher. I always thought of Nathan Fletcher being more of a smaller looking guy. But when these guys faced off, Nathan Fletcher looks bigger than Rinya Nakamura. And I know size and looks and all, it's not everything, but for some reason I was just thinking Rinya was going to seem like the bigger guy here, especially when it's going to be a wrestling and grappling match here, most likely. That's probably where the majority of this fight takes place. It makes me less confident in Rinya. It makes me a little bit more confident in Nathan Fletcher just because we already know his scrambling abilities are so good and we know he has the submission abilities to go along with them. So I'm a bit nervous for Rinya Nakamura in this one. He does match up. I mean, they look very similar in size, but Nathan Fletcher definitely looks like he has the slight edge in the size here. I don't know. It's definitely did not make me more confident in Rinya. That's for damn sure. So, but I can't say it really is anything major. But anyway, Danny Silva versus Kevin Vallejos. Now, Danny Silva came in at 144.5. Kevin Vallejos 146. The difference in these guys' looks is absolutely insane. You look at Danny Silva, he looks like he is not feeling too good. He looks like he's looking death in the eyes. That's not what's the word? That doesn't make me feel good about him if I were to pick him. Obviously, I'm big on Kevin Vallejos this week, but it does not make me feel confident that Danny Silva is feeling great and is super excited and really wants to be there. He's looking like, damn, man, this is not going to be fun. Whereas Kevin Vallejos looks ready to go, full of joy. He seems confident. He seems ready to go. And I know I've seen Danny Silva's weigh-ins before. I know he has more of a, not calm, but like he has like a very like straight face, like no emotion, like stone cold. I know that's his thing, and I know he does look like that a lot of the time in weigh-ins. And same with Kevin, where he does usually look really like up and more like happy, ready to go lucky, like ready to go, confident. It's kind of their guys' vibes, but something about Danny Silva's just expressions and the face-offs and the weigh-ins, he just seems like, I don't know, psychologically, he just seems like mentally, I don't want to say out of it, but it's not a good look. I would say it's definitely not a good look, especially when you see the face-offs. You see Danny Silva looking at Kevin Vallejos. Kevin Vallejos looks confident, strong. He's standing big. He's ready to go. Danny Silva just has this look like, it looks like he's looking death in the eyes. Like, it just does not rub me the right way. It just gives me even more confidence for Kevin Vallejos because Danny Silva seems almost like he's mentally beaten before this fight's even started. So that does give me more confidence for Kevin. And if you look at this too, this was, this kind of reminded me of like this type of like stare down where it's like you're looking death in the eyes and you're just like, what am I doing? Like it did not give me a lot of confidence for the Danny Silva side. So, but yeah, when you see these guys match up too, I wanted to include this, Kevin Vallejos, some people were like, oh, well, he's undersized for the division. He looks pretty damn big compared to Danny Silva. He is way more full. He's way more thick. Considering his reach advantage, or his disadvantage. He's only down by, I think, 2 inches total. I don't know where Danny Silva is going to thrive in this one. And especially, this was little bit of a better perspective in terms of, like, you can see the width of both of these guys a little bit more. Kevin Vallejos is huge. That man is a tank. He's literally a Gene Silva 2.0. I just think it's going to be way too much for Danny Silva. I think Danny Silva can do good. I think he's a good fighter. But I just don't think he's going to win this fight. I really don't think he is. I think Kevin Vallejos is going to have his way. He looks great on the weigh-ins. It just makes me even more confident in Kevin, especially with the whole mental battle too. I feel like Kevin's definitely winning the mental battle side of it, along with the physical side. But oh yeah, this was interesting too. This was when Danny Silva went to go figure out like his reach against Kevin Vallejos. He was trying to like figure out like his range. You know, some guys do this before fights, but the one thing that this kind of told me was that, okay, if Danny Silva's trying to figure out his range and trying to kind of figure out his like reach, you know, against Kevin Vallejos, that signifies to me that, okay, he thinks this is going to be a striking match. He's ready to strike. You know, he's probably not going to implement any grappling, especially if he's trying to figure out that reach. You know, that doesn't show to me, or that doesn't tell me, all right, I'm ready to go shoot some takedowns. You know what I mean? Like, that makes me even more confident that this is going to be on the feet, standing, and I favor Kevin Vallejos all day, every day against Danny Silva. So, unless this was some like 300 IQ play by Danny Silva, like, oh, I'm totally going to throw him off. Now I'm turning into prime Khabib. I'm shooting 50 takedowns. Like, unless it was a 300 reverse psychology, 300 IQ play, which I don't think it was, you know, I think this is pointing to, this is going to be a striking match on the feet. And that makes me even more confident in Kevin Vallejos. So, next up, we got Neil Magny versus Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos. These guys are both older. They both look really good for their age. Nothing bad to say about either guy. They both look great. When they face off when they did the face off, you know, we knew Magny going into this was going to have that reach advantage and the height advantage, but he does look a little bit bigger than I thought he was going to, just looking at the stats. You know, seeing these guys really face off against each other, Magny looks pretty damn big in here. And I know this is a tough one. I think this is a hard one to pick. I think it makes a lot of sense why Dos Santos is the favorite, because I think he does probably have a higher chance of winning this fight. But I think Magny, if he can really keep that range, that 7-inch reach advantage, if he can keep his distance, use his range well, the striking, I think he could have some good success here too. But anyway, we got Karol Rosa versus Nora Cornolle. This was an interesting one as well, because it was like Nora Cornolle, when she had a hard time making weight, but she also was crying after she made weight. And something about people crying before fights is a weird type of situation. Like, we've seen guys like a Sean Strickland, Israel Adesanya, you know what I mean? Like, when those guys cry, it's like they don't have good performances. They usually result in losses. But I think for a girl like Nora Cornolle, where maybe seeing her crying, maybe that signifies that she's going to be a little more kind of maybe reckless, or make it dirty, make it crafty, you know, like, I think that's going to help her in this fight. Whereas like an Israel Adesanya fighting DDP, you know, like Israel Adesanya is the technical fighter. He's got to be sharp. He's got to be very in the moment and focused. Whereas a DDP, he kind of wants to make it ugly, you know? So that's like that type of thing works against a guy like Izzy. Whereas against a girl, or with a girl like Nora Cornolle, she needs to make this ugly. She needs to make this a brawl. Karol Rosa is probably the more technical striker. So the way to win this fight for Nora Cornolle is to make it ugly, make it scrappy. So to see her crying, I could take it as a positive thing, you know? But either way, both of these girls did make weight. I don't know if I said this or not, but Nora Cornolle was one of the last girls to make weight. So she did have a little bit of a harder time, but when these girls ended up doing the face-off, you know, it really didn't make that much of a difference. They both looked mentally there. I think Rosa probably looks a little bit better. Cornolle looks a little bit drained, but I don't think it's enough to really have a swing, in my opinion, one way or another. I think this is going to be very close. It's really whoever has their way. If Rosa can keep it technical, or Cornolle can make it scrappy and make it a brawl. So next up, we got Elvis Brenner versus Estevam Ribovic. Now, both of these guys looked a little drained, but this is pretty normal. I've seen a lot of Estevam Ribovic weigh-ins, and he always does look a little bit sunken in compared to other guys. And so this doesn't really bother me either way, because they both look pretty there mentally. They both look pretty there physically. So when they did the face-off, it was about the similar vibe too. They both look a little drained, a little sunken in. But it's on both sides, so it's like it doesn't really influence my opinions on this fight at all. So these guys both look pretty good. Next up, we got Mateusz Rebecki versus Chris Duncan. Same thing here. They both look good. Rebecki looks absolutely jacked and shredded, which Chris Duncan looks a little bit more, not as muscular, but it makes sense. Rebecki's a little shorter, is a little more stockier, more compact muscles, But in the face-offs, Chris Duncan definitely has the height edge. He probably has the reach edge too. I forget looking at the stats. But he definitely, you can tell he's a little bit bigger than Rebecki in terms of the height at least. But I don't know, man. I just think, if anything, it's probably going to help Rebecki because he's going to be able to get to that chin easier. And I think if Rebecki gets to that Chris Duncan chin, it's probably going to be night-night. So this doesn't really affect my opinion on this fight either way. I kind of have the same exact opinion on this one. I think Rebecki probably does get Chris Duncan out of there. I don't know. I'm a little bit worried because there's always something that could happen. These guys are going to go to war. So this one's going to be a good-ass fight to watch either way, but it doesn't really change my opinions. And finally, we got Tatsuro Taira versus Hyung-Sung Park. Both of these guys made weight. They both look pretty damn good. Taira did look a little drained compared to Park, it definitely, you could tell he had a little bit of a harder cut, but he's been ready for it. He's been going. I don't really worry about him in that sense. He's very professional and he's ready to go, so I don't think it's a bad cut by any means. I think you can just see it a little bit more on his face where he's drowned out a little bit more than Park is. But yeah, when these guys faced off, nothing really stood out to me. They both look good. They both look ready to go. It's pretty much like a dead even build. Like these guys, same height, pretty much same build. Like this should be a really good scrap. So I'm excited for this one, but can't say the weigh-ins really change any of my opinions on this one. So. Oh, yeah, this was one other angle, too, because most of the guys, they just kind of walked off afterwards. But these guys both look good. They both look ready to go. Taira looked a little less drained in this one. His eyes are a little baggy, maybe it could be the weight cut, could be sleep or something, I don't know. But it doesn't really weigh my opinions one way or the other. Now for the recap, we're going to go back over the confidence levels and just kind of do one last final recap. So I'm more confident in Kevin Vallejos after this weigh-in and face-off. Same with Austin Bashi. These guys won the mental battle in my eyes. They both look great on the scales. They look better than their opponents in every regard. In terms of the mental, the physical, and it just made me even more confident in both of them winning their fights. In terms of Park versus Taira, like I said, not a whole lot really influenced my opinion. It was kind of everything we thought. Same with Rebecki versus Duncan. Not a whole lot changing my opinions there. Estevam versus Bunes. I'm more confident in Estevam's abilities after this. It's kind of like, it could be a hit or miss. Now, I'm more confident in Estevam after this because he's going to have such a huge weight advantage. Yes, he did look rough. And, sometimes when guys are having bad cuts, that can make them perform even worse, even if they do come a little overweight. But I just think the huge amount of weight the huge amount of weight that he has, that he missed by, for a guy that like him that wants to implement that wrestling style and take it to the ground, and that's where he dominates. I don't know if he's pretending like the weight cut was worse than it was. He didn't look terrible on the scales. So I imagine he's going to be rehydrated by tomorrow. He's going to be ready to go, and he's probably going to dominate. So that makes me more confident in him just because we know exactly what his game plan is. We know Bunes has struggled against that type of heavy grappling wrestling style in the past. And with a guy like Estevam, that now he's coming in so much heavier, he's just going to be able to dominate even more than he was before. As long as he's not dealing with some underlying injury or health problem that is the reason he botched this weight cut, because we don't know. There's a chance that could be a thing. Maybe he had some infection or some type of medical problem that botched his weight cut and he couldn't cut that extra weight, and now maybe he's dealing with the sickness. That's always a possibility. But with a guy like that who's missed weight before, he's a wrestler who wants that extra weight to be able to implement his game plan even more effectively. I'd say it probably leans towards him intentionally missing weight as opposed to a fluke injury or illness or sickness or medical condition that's causing that. So I think that makes me more confident in him. Like I said, Brenner versus Ribovics, that doesn't really change my confidence level with that fight that much. They both look the same in terms of the weight cut and the effects it had on them. Nakamura versus Fletcher, I'm a little bit less confident in Nakamura just because Fletcher looked really sizable out there. It looked like he packed on a little bit of muscle, and we know he has really good ground game. He has those good submission abilities, so it made me less confident in Nakamura for sure. I think Fletcher looked damn good on scales. Now, Vieira versus Gore. This tanked my confidence for that fight. Vieira's path to win this fight was through taking it to the ground, through the grappling, the wrestling, taking it down, and going for a submission. Now, Gore showing up 3, 4, 5, however many pounds over. That's going to make it even more difficult for Vieira to hang in there and go for the takedowns. We know Gore's takedown defense, too, like I talked about in one of my last videos. It's 86% already. So he already has a decent takedown defense rate. And now he's coming in overweight against a grappler who that's his main way to win. Because Gore should probably win if this stays on the feet in striking range. So I think that hurts Vieira's chances of winning a lot. So I'm a lot less confident in that one. But anyway, moving on, we got Rodriguez versus Souza. I'm a little bit more confident in Souza after this one. Rodriguez after this one. The reasoning for this being is that Rodriguez, to win this fight, she's going to need to go for the takedowns. We know that. Souza's probably going to be the more explosive striker. She's probably going to have more power in the hands. But with Rodriguez, it's like an IQ question of like, is she going to stick to the game plan that's smartest? We've seen her get DQ lost in a fight she was winning because she headbutted a girl right after the ref told her not to headbutt the girl. So the IQ is a concern. But after seeing her at these weigh-ins and face-offs, she seems very mentally collected, calm, cool, sensible. She seems locked in. She doesn't seem erratic or doing anything crazy. So that does make me a little bit more confident. Okay, maybe Rodriguez is going to keep a very strict game plan, stick to the takedowns, stick to what she knows will win her the fight. So that makes me slightly more confident in Rodriguez this week. Next, we got Klein versus Pulyaev. Like I said, the weight cuts really didn't affect my opinions a lot. I think Klein looks in better shape, and Pulyaev did look a little bit more drained when they did their own individual weigh-ins. But when we saw them face off at the end, it was a little weird that Klein was so timid looking, but I can't say that it really influences my opinions a ton. Not enough to pick flip on this, so I'm leaving it as it is, but still a low confidence pick. This could easily go either way. Now, I put a question mark by Rosa versus Cornolle. This was what I was talking about earlier in this video about Cornolle crying. It's the same thing of against certain fighters, you'd see them crying and emotional before a fight, and you think, oh, well, maybe they're not mentally all the way locked in. Maybe they're going through some stuff. And that would be all right, that's not a good thing. That should make you less confident. But a girl like Cornolle, where she's a bit of a brawler, she needs that craziness to really go in there and make it a dogfight. And that's exactly the type of fight that she needs against a girl like Rosa, who's going to be the probably superior striker, who's more technical. Maybe the crying and the emotional instability actually will help her. Maybe it'll make her, maybe her emotional kind of crazy state that she could be in. I don't know. This is just speculation off the crying. Maybe that'll help her on this. So I put a question mark because I'm like, depending on how you take that, you could say maybe a little more confident in Cornolle or maybe a little less. But I just thought that was kind of funny in there. But yeah, next up we got Magny and Dos Santos. Like I said, the weigh-ins didn't really influence my opinion a whole lot. These guys both look really good. They both look great for their age. We knew Magny going into this, the reach was probably his best redeeming shot of winning this fight, just like we talked about in my my underdog breakdown video, my dog watch video. Go watch that if y'all haven't. But the statistic is fighters with a 6 to 8 inch reach advantage have a 60% win rate in the UFC. Now, I know that's just a statistic. Styles make fights. You can't just go off the stats. But for Magny being the underdog and coming into this where on paper he could have a 60% chance of winning this fight, I know that doesn't correlate. I know that's not how that works, but at the same time, he has a large advantage to him with that extra reach. These guys are both older. Magny's been going against killers, so he's been looking bad on his last couple wins and losses. His records it's been pretty tough for him. So I think that kind of has people underestimate him. And I get the Dos Santos side, though. He has more power. He's going to be landing the more damaging shots. He's probably the better striker in terms of the just raw technical skill. And if it comes down to a point fight back and forth, he probably will land the more damaging strikes. But I just think Magny, this could be a bounce back spot for him. I feel like his stock is so much lower than it could be just because of the matches he's had. So going with Magny, I'm not pick flipping on that one, but not yet at least. But yeah, I'm on the fence, but going ever so slightly Magny. But just in terms of the weigh-in recap video, the weigh-ins don't really affect that pick for me. Now, I know like in the last video, I didn't have the trap, but just for joke's sake. Oh, wait. Oh, actually, no, we'll get into that in the next slide. Sorry. But in terms of the rankings, this is the back and forth. This is the Silva and Vallejos and Bashi Yannis. They're the same. Those are my locks of this card, but I am even more confident in both of those after seeing the weigh-ins. Whereas I did move up Estevam up to a high confidence pick as before. This was before where he was a medium confidence pick, just because if he's missing weight by this damn much, he's missing it by like 5+ pounds or 4+ pounds, he should be able to implement his game plan a lot more than he could have before. We saw him do it against Charles Johnson where he missed weight and he was able to implement that game plan. So against a guy like Bunes, who I would not put at the same level as Charles Johnson, I think he's going to have a field day. God forbid that he doesn't have some illness or some medical injury. Like I said, if this is just him intentionally butching the weight cut to get a win, that should be, his chances should be even higher than before to win this now with that huge weight advantage. So, and then the Nakamura fight, I put it down a little bit in confidence just in terms of the rating on here, but not a whole lot, just because their size is really, they evened out pretty damn well. So I'm a little less confident in Nakamura, but at the same time, he does have such a huge wrestling edge. That's his whole background. That's what he grew up on, and he should be the better wrestler than Fletcher. So I'll still have him as the pick in the medium confidence for that, but the scrambling is where it could be tricky because Fletcher seemed to fill out a little bit more, and we know he has a good submission game, so anything could happen on the ground. And in terms of the low confidence picks too, not a whole lot changed. They're about the same, except I did move Vieira versus Gore down to a low confidence pick now. Just because before, if these guys were even weight, I would have had Vieira as a medium confidence pick because I think he would be able to have a better time or a better chance of taking it to the ground and going for that submission. But now that Gore is so much heavier than he should be, he's botched the weight cut himself, it makes me a lot less confident. So I put him down as the low confidence pick. I put this slide into, I almost pick flipped to Gore. I've been on the fence about it because the whole Vieira laughing thing too is kind of throwing me off. That's like, why is he laughing when his opponent just missed weight? He has decent takedown defense already, and he's probably going to be the better striker than you. And now he's taking away or making it harder for you to implement the one way that you can win this fight, and you're laughing about it. I don't like to see that. As someone who's picking, I do not like to see that at all. So I'm this close to pick flipping to Tresean Gore just because if he keeps it on the feet, he's probably going to win the fight, and now he has a better chance to do so. So I'm not quite there. I'm going to keep it as a low confidence pick for Vieira just because he should have that big advantage on the ground. He just needs to get it there once, and he should be able to have his way. But I'm damn close. I'm damn close to pick flipping to Tresean Gore here. But anyway, guys, that does it for the weigh-in recap video. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you guys got something from this, And thank you guys so much for all the recent love and support on the videos. All the comments, all the likes, the subscriptions. It means a ton to me. So thank you guys again. Thank you guys so much for all of that. And yeah, it's your boy Jacob from Topside MMA. So make sure you stick around for later videos. I got some more videos. I got 1 or 2 coming before this card actually starts tomorrow. So make sure y'all stay tuned for that. So yeah, it's your boy Jacob from Topside MMA, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.